In this tutorial, we'll be looking at using the OSCQuery Helper to publish the OSC address space from an max patch and access those parameters on another computer using the OSC query browser and VDMX. To begin, I'm going to start by taking this very simple max patch that I have that just creates a little bit of a sine tone. And I'm going to add in some OSC receiving, so that's the UDP receive object, and I'll enter in the port that I want to receive on. If we want to just see messages that are being received, we can add in a print OSC in and connect that here. And now any messages that come in will be printed out. Right now, we're using the sample document.json. So if I were to browse this from my other computer, I would just get a listing of some test options that are available. So for example, if I start moving this slider, we can see test values being received. If I fire off an infinity, we'll see infinity being received. If I type in a string, we'll see a string being received. But in this case, we'll want to set up some specific document, a specific JSON document that describes the values that we actually want to receive here. So if I go into the Finder, I can bring up the OSC Query Helper folder, where I have the test sample JSON document. And if you go through here, you can actually see how the description is laid out. So this is a great starting point if you just want to copy part of this and paste it into another document, or duplicate this and start from another point. I've created a test document that'll be included with this example video. So let's open that up and take a look at it. So here we just have a very simple setup. I have a parameter called volume, a parameter called frequency. Though most applications don't really support or use it, you can put in the unit to describe things. So volume could be a percentage, or you can use hertz for describing a frequency if you want. And I've put in a range for what will be sent from the other side. If you want, you can also add in other things. You could just copy this and give it another name, such as other value, and specify a range that you want for it. And if you don't want to include this other information, you could just delete it. Maybe it doesn't have any sort of information. So I'll hit save on that, and let's just minimize that for now. And minimize this. Let's load in the file that we've created, test.1. And when we do that, we can see that this is already reloaded here. And now we have our values, so we can send, we get frequency, we have other value, and volume all being sent. If we switch over to our max patch, we can use the route object to control where these go. So we can have route frequency, route volume, and other value. Let's stretch this out a little bit more. Connect this to here. Frequency goes there. Volume goes there. And now, from our remote machine, we can adjust the frequency, and we can adjust the volume. If we turn on the sound, we can see that actually ramping up our curve levels and adjusting the frequency. And of course, other values being received, but not being actually used to control anything right now. If we switch over to VDMX, we can use the OSC Query Client plugin, and this will give us similar controls to the browser. We can go under here, we can add in our frequency and volume sliders, and control those directly from VDMX. We could do things like use a step sequencer plugin and use that to control the frequency so that we're adjusting those using our interface controls in VDMX. Another useful thing that you might want to do is actually, instead of having sliders visible for everything, we can have other interface controls. So if instead of having our other value be a floating point, we could switch it to being an integer range. And if I save that now, maybe we'll call this an int node now. Now, when I inspect my OSCQuery client and we see other value and I add it, we'll have a toggle instead. Similarly, if we switch to the OSCQuery browser, now it's become a toggle here. If we switch that to being a different range, we'll get a number picker instead. So one of the conventions here is that if you have an integer where the range is 0 to 1, you'll get a toggle switch instead of a slider or a number picker. We can also do things like include strings. So in this case, we don't necessarily need a clip mode or anything else. We could just call this a string node, and we can call this our test string. Hit save, and now we have our string node, so we could do hello. We can switch over to VDMX if we want. We get our text string here. Goodbye. And that's our tutorial. Thanks for watching. We hope you find this really useful.